I hadn't really planned to do a short video today, but then the more I thought about it, the more I liked the idea. If you remember, if you saw it, if not, it's available. But I had posted my opening of the PholarcosTarot. It was completely new to me, and I didn't find out until after I had purchased it. It had actually been around for a while, but this was a limited edition, a little bit different cardstock with black edging, and so I did a walkthrough of that. But if you haven't seen it, or if you're not familiar with it, then please check it out. The artist's name is Carmen Sorrenti, and it's at carmensorrenti.com, and it's very easy. That's all you have to do. Type that in, or you can just type in her name and her website will pop right up. And I had actually bought mine from a shop on Etsy, but she actually is able to sell them on her site herself. And so if I had known that before, I would have bought them directly from her. But the shop I dealt with on Etsy was wonderful. They were good people. During that walkthrough, I did some talk of shadow work, and then I brought in the Wisdom of Pooh Tarot just to compare it, the dark to the light. And then I had a comment which made me think. Lady Kara from Kara Tarot had mentioned that it was interesting how I compared doing inner child work with shadow work. And I didn't think about it like that. I looked at it as two sides of shadow work, just different viewpoints. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment, but I'll get the cards going. You're familiar with this deck. If you're not, then please enjoy. I'm not going to go through each card individual. Like, I'm not going to say Two of Swords, Two of Pentacles. I'm going to flip through while I talk because it's a beautiful deck. I think it'll speak for itself. And this is one deck. Simon from the Hermit's Cave and some other people have followed up with it. 10 decks that will never leave their collection. Well, this is definitely on the top 3 or 4. Ever since he showed it on his channel, and I think he may have been the first YouTuber to show it, Simon at the Hermit's Cave. I'm not sure, but if he wasn't the first, he was absolutely one of the first that the artists had sent a copy to, and as soon as he showed it, it struck a chord in me. Not because of just the beautiful artwork, not because of the production and all of that I could see very well. There are some very well produced decks, very well packaged decks, beautifully boxed decks that don't speak to me. So it's not that. It was that inner child. It was that connection to something deep within me that made me recall who I was at a certain point in my life. And but the artwork is beautiful. I mean, everything they did on the box, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And then they do have a wonderful book that goes with this. I didn't purchase that, but they do have a wonderful book that goes with it. It actually has the stories, a little story that goes with each card, and then the meaning of the cards as well. But it is $150, and I don't have, that's a little bit out of my budget. And I would not dare say it's not worth it, because I believe it is. I just believe it's one of those books that's well published and with quality binding. I think it might be a leather cover with a ribbon. I mean, it's beautiful, and I'm sure it's worth the $150. Maybe one day if I have a 14-year-old son who's eating me out of house and home right now, so so maybe when he gets through eating our budget, I'll be able to pick it up. But they do the cards like this for the meanings. It's a very RWS deck, so it's not too mysterious. You could just pick up the deck. One thing that I did love about this, you get a certificate of authenticity, the Wisdom of Pooh 2023, created by Serafina and Angel Mesa, illustrated by Kat L. Amsel. In the deck, and then this really speaks to me, because there is this card And I'm going to read the blessing, and then it says a warning for the wicked. It's not dark or dim or anything. I'm just going to read the blessing though, because I don't look at this. I'm not going to misuse the deck or whatever. I'm not going to make copies of it illegally. So the blessing from Seraphina Mesa says, may an abundance of joy and nostalgia be bestowed upon the owner of this deck. Let the wisdom of Pooh serve as your trusted companion through twists and turns in the path that lies ahead, and hold your hand through the scary parts. I love that. But on the backside, from Angel Mesa, is a Christian prayer. May the Lord bestow many blessings upon all of those that behold this deck. May you receive the Lord's love, joy, and peace that surpasses understanding. May all the issues presented into this deck receive the Lord's healing and growth. May the Lord guide you, direct you, give you his wisdom and enlightenment through your journey through the Wisdom of Pooh Tarot deck. So, I love this because I wouldn't consider myself outright pagan or a practice of a witch, so to speak, but I am a member of a group online for male witches. I am a member of some pagan communities and Wiccan groups, and I have no issue or problem with the ceremonial aspects that give thanks for the earth and recognize the earth and the things of the earth. That if you believe the earth is alive and living and breathing, and that there is a unifying spirit that runs through everything, I mean, come on. So then how could I not be attracted to parts of this that fit within my practice? And then also I consider myself a Christian, so to me this is very balanced, and I really appreciate it, and I wish we were all more like this. So maybe that will happen one day. We all have our wishes and hopes and dreams. But the Pooh. So there are two Fool cards are a little bit different. This one has El Fulio, which I think is funny. He has a fanny pack or a pouch instead, and a hat instead of the bag. So what I was going to say about, let me see if this is coming down any further. If I can get that closer. Oh, that's better, I think. Let me see if I can. There we go. Oh, there we go. All right. So I just need to keep it centered in frame, and then it'll be good there. So as I was saying, inner child work. When I spoke about this deck the other night, I spoke about how this deck is one I would use for shadow work, depending on what aspect of my shadow I am working on. And then, of course, the mention of inner child work. And then to me, that brings up the question, is inner child work and shadow work different? I think not. I think what it is that shadow work, as I said, my definitions, these are all pieces of what I'm saying now, are all pieces of things I've read from different people, learned from different people, studied on my own, and sort of put together. So I'm not an expert. A lot of my counseling that I went through was based on this sort of working through the shadows and becoming an integrated whole. So that's what I was going to say, is that shadow work for me is working on all the parts of yourself that seem to have become, since a young age, fragmented. And this is from my perspective. So for me, parts of myself that became fragmented. I was not the same person I was, depending on which other people or person was around me at the time. And that did not serve me well. And it was a cause of a lot of problems. If you've ever known someone that says one thing to one person, says they believe this and believe that, and then in another group, they're like, oh no, I'm not like, sort of denying things or denying belief systems, or just agreeing to get along, or like, oh yeah, I agree with you because I don't want to be alone in this at this time right now in this group. So that sort of false persona we project to try to be accepted, when in fact, if I was just myself, then I would be have a lot more peace about myself and how I carry myself and what I'm saying and who I am. And then that would be picked up by whoever I was around, regardless of their belief system or what group they were in. So I think the shadow work is not putting on a front of who you are to feel that you are connecting to the people you are around. And I think that inner child work that sectioning off, that sort of fragmenting of yourself comes from your earlier childhood. What did you see happening around you? What was said to you by people in authority? How were you treated by people in authority? For the longest time, I won't go into my personal history too much, but it was traumatic. But I remember several times, and it happened more than once, my mother would tell me, I'm so glad you're not like your father and brother. Well, those were the only male people in my life. So what was I supposed to do with that? And yet at the same time, I was told that I had to do what my brother said because he was 10 years older than me, and then I had to listen to my father and show the proper respects. But yet, anyway, so confusing for a child, right? So that sort of is just very one small example of how from our early childhood we can become fragmented to be different people in different situations, not because we want to, not because we automatically instinctually do that, but because someone around us in a position of authority, or a teacher, or a parent, or a guardian, someone has not taught us how to do that, but in a nonverbal way made it known that that was what was expected. And so that's what we do as a child, trying to be the good child. We become someone different depending on the situation in different places with different groups. Don't realize it. You don't realize you're doing it. I didn't realize I was doing it. I say you as the third person, I'm talking about me. So every time I've said you or we, I'm talking about me. So it's something that was sort of impassively taught to me, I guess. And through therapy and through work, and then through continued self-reflection, every now and then I'll go for a counseling session just to do a check-in if I feel a little off or wonky, just to make sure that, okay, this is how I feel, this is what I'm thinking about that, just to get that mirror back at me. But this addresses the part of my life where I was being fragmented. The shadow, the darker parts, are the later fragmented parts. But they're all part and parcel of the same person, me, and they're all aspects of myself. And the integration of healing the inner child, changing the message to the inner child, and then using that information to coalesce those darker parts that I had when I was older, later teens, adulthood, to bring those pieces together is all shadow work to me. And so when I say this deck is for shadow work for me, and someone else might say like, oh, well, it's interesting how you intertwine inner child work with shadow work. That's a really good point. And I had not thought of it that way, but that's what it is. But it's inner child work layered on top of shadow work, because for me, in my work, in my practice, in my self-reflection, I cannot separate the two, because the child leads to the adult. The inner child leads to the shadow. And I think that's the best way I know how to say it. And I hope that this conversation has been helpful to someone. And I know this is a deck that you've probably seen, but I'm going to stop saying that, because you know what? I had not seen the PholarcosTarot. I have been re-involved with the tarot for the past 3 years, and after a huge hiatus when I was in my late teens. And so before 3 years ago, I don't know what was out. I don't know what was produced. And so when I see a deck for the first time and I'm attracted to it or drawn to it, and I think, oh, that's beautiful, it just really speaks to me. Then, and I thought about this. I used to not show a lot of decks that were out there already, a lot of videos, like this one. But it means so much to me that's part of the reason why I do this. That's part of the reason why I'm making these videos. Not to show new decks, not to sell decks or advertise decks or make sure I'm at the top of the list, but instead to talk about tarot, why it means so much to me, and why a particular deck speaks to me, and how I might use it. Those are the things that I like talking about, and having these conversations about shadow work and inner child work, and how I use that in my practice, and the decks that help me do that. And those decks may not be new. You may have seen them, but maybe the conversation is new. So I thought at first when I started doing this that I had to have the new decks, and I had to have something to talk about for anyone to be interested, but that's not true. That's definitely not true. And Martin from Martin's Musings, I believe that's the name of the channel. I'll try to remember to put the link here. But he said the other day something to the similar about, if you have something to say, say it. If you don't have all the decks, not everybody has a budget, not everybody has people giving them decks, then talk about what is important to you. Use the decks you have. And that's so true. And I have a lot of decks I have not talked about. And I think I'm going to focus more on that, because to me, that conversation from me to you is more genuine than me trying to search through the newest decks out there to find one I can sort of connect with to have a video to make. This is the most genuine, and I think that's important, and I think that's part of my work, is like, this is the real me. This is a deck that I love, that I work with, that connects with me. I remember every year when the cartoons, these animated shows would come on, even though I'd seen them 100 times, if it came on now, I would still be over the moon. Every now and then I'll watch cartoons, because it makes me feel it was a happy place in my childhood to watch a cartoon. It was a happy place in my childhood to read a book like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, to imagine sort of walking through the woods into a new world. But we'll leave that on the King of Swords. Absolutely beautiful deck. You'll notice there were a couple of extra cards. I'll show those again. But the matte, sort of it's not brilliant. It's not matte, but it's not brilliant either. It's just beautiful. It's sort of a really nice in between. Let me just see if I can go real quick. But those are my thoughts. Inner child work, shadow work, and I hope that is a discussion that's good for someone. I hope it's helpful. It is not an easy work. Every time I think I've come through the heart of it, I find out I'm just still in the coronary. So still have work to do. And it's funny how it hits me, especially now that I have a son. I'll see my son in a situation or something that hurts him, or how I say something to him, and it immediately is a gut punch, because I'm like, whoa, I remember that. I need to step back. I need to rethink this, what I'm saying, how I'm acting, what we're doing. And then I'll just have an honest discussion with him about, so here's the world card 21, about what's going on. And then that's a little piece of me that I need to go work on. So the world. Joy is 22, which I love. Bravery is 23. And these are all new cards. Togetherness. I love this card. Togetherness. So those are the extra cards, which I just adore. And just a well done deck. I'm from the South, the Southern United States. I'm from South Carolina. So I'll just go and put this here and say, this is just such a beautiful deck, created by Serafina and Angel Mesa. Just bless them. Just bless them. A little bit of my Southern there. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. If you haven't seen this deck before, then please go look at Simon from the Hermit's Cave. He does a more detailed walkthrough of each card and the discussion of the book. And there's some other ones that do that first initial walkthrough with the full description. But I've enjoyed this conversation. I feel like I got something off my chest, and I feel like that with the help from another friend on YouTube, Lady Kara at PholarcosTarot, gave me another thing to think about how all of this inner work connects. So thank you all. Have a good night, and I hope to see you soon.